Hi, and welcome to Journey Forward with Jory Rose, where you will gain insights, tools, and inspiration to get unstuck and live your best life. Jory is a licensed marriage and family therapist with a passion for helping people cultivate awareness and authenticity so they can show up fully in all aspects of their life. And now, here's Jory.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Journey Forward with Shari Rose. I am here with my best friend in the world, Shari Teigman, which I am laughing because this is actually the first time we've ever spoken live, but
officially, not just energetically.
Right. We've been connected on social media for I don't know how long and have been championing each other's lives and messaging each other. And I feel she's like my long lost soul sister that I'm actually getting to meet in person. So this has already been amazing. And now we get to have you guys tune in. Shari,
you just missed the first 45 minutes of the podcast that we didn't record. So now we're going to press record. Yes. I feel the same. Thank you so much for having me.
So Shari, as my listeners know, I don't do formal introductions. I really like for my guests to introduce themselves and share what has been your journey. How did you get to where you are to the extent that you want to share? But really, ultimately, how did that journey get you to be shining the light that you shine now in your life and what you do for others?
Amazing. I like this intro. It's my kind of conversation. So, if I look back, I would never have believed I'd be here because at each stage of where I've been, I've believed that story very deeply. And I'm sure your listeners as human beings will resonate with that a lot. So I think despite myself, I've gotten where I am, which makes the journey even more fun. So current incarnation of me is I'm a performance mentor and a creative strategist. I help people unleash the maverick within them, and we can get into what that means. So I like to say I help the non-average Joes and Janes, because I don't believe anyone's average, believe that they are not broken and help them create the lives and businesses that they are meant to without needing to follow anyone else's rules. So again, current incarnation, I am a former people pleaser, which still pops up. I am a former Stepford wife. I did that very well. I grew up modern Orthodox Jewish right outside New York City. So for any of you who've watched any movies or television, it's exactly what you think it is. So I grew up in a beautiful environment. I don't have a rags to riches story other than I lost myself in a life that wasn't mine. And I needed to figure out how to lovingly remove myself from what didn't work for me while still honoring what worked for everyone else. It was messy. It was scary, still is sometimes. And along the road, I've learned a lot about humans and our hearts and our fears and our pain and our dreams. And it's been a magical 15-year journey, 9.5 years since I'm doing what I'm doing. Yeah. So like I said, despite myself, I'm sitting in front of you as this me I am now.
And I'm so glad that you are. And what courage. I mean, the word that kept coming up for me as you were talking about that was the courage, right? As a formal people pleaser, as growing up in an environment which didn't really support a lot of questioning or individuality, and being in an environment in which, what do I do when what's going on around me doesn't serve me? How do I compassionately shift that?
Yeah. And with no tools, might I add. It's really great with a musical soundtrack when it's a movie or you've got someone on board who understands what's happening. I had no idea. And for years I was angry and embarrassed about that, about how naive I was or how I thought this was going to play out. And I now can look at it as one of the greatest gifts of that time, because if I had foresight to know how it would play out, I don't know if I could have been brave enough to do it. So my naivete probably saved my life in a lot of ways.
Sometimes ignorance really is bliss.
Yeah. And it was just, I just was going to figure it out. I had no idea what I needed to figure out, which again was better off. And I remember I'm very close with my parents, my dad looking at me, supporting whatever I was going to do. But I could now read a parent's face being like, okay, I don't know what the hell she's doing, but we're just going to smile and go with it, wave and clap, take this ride with her. And I guess I have that spark in me. I've always have had that spark in me, which is where the maverick piece comes up. I wouldn't call myself a rebel, although I have my rebellious moments, but I'm a deep thinker. I'm an out of the box person. I don't fit into other people's rules. I don't need to break other people's rules, but I generally break my own rules a lot of the time. So this whole maverick piece came about, honestly, post my divorce. I got divorced 14 years ago as a young mom. Really had no idea much about the life that I needed to live, because I went to college, and I got married at 23, took the track that a lot of my friends did. I just did what I thought I was supposed to do. And it was a wrong fit for me. And I needed to untangle myself to get out. And at the time, I had felt so beaten down by what I didn't know and how I didn't understand what I needed in terms of tools to function in the world and decide what was I going to do next. I spent so much time running from what I didn't want. That was very clear to me that when I was finally free, in a sense, and the adrenaline ran off, that I fell into a dark place because I had no place to go. I just knew where I didn't want to be. So the Maverick thing really came about for me because in that dark place, couldn't handle the sound of silence. So I fell down the rabbit hole of personal development. Randomly on Facebook, what I now know is someone's summit, a girl I went to high school with, was on a summit. And I was like, oh, I'll click on this. It's something to listen to other than my own mind. And I was like, oh, these people think like I do, but I never had any of this language. So long story short, fast forward, I hired a coach myself. My first one rejected me, which was a whole nother story. I'm like, wait, I want to give you money. I learned all the right lingo. I know exactly what I'm supposed to say to you. I'm ready. And I'm so grateful to her for saying no. She introduced me to someone else who was a wonderful experience for me. And then I realized I loved this so much. I did a year-long teacher training, yoga teacher training, and a coach training because I don't do anything halfway. So I figured I'd just fully immerse myself in this. And when I came out all ready to be this new me at 37, 38, 39, 40, actually, I started my business, and I just recreated another Stepford version of myself. Now I'm the perfect little life coach with all the perfect pictures and alignment words and vulnerability all over a website that sounded absolutely nothing like me. And it wasn't working. And I was like, I have come way too far to then create another version of someone else's life. So I, in my ragey New Yorker Shari self, stripped it all back, and I said, I'm sweary, I'm ragey, I have a lot of opinions, I'm very passionate, I think very out of the box, I'm extremely creative. I'm either doing it that way or I'm not doing it. I don't know what that bold comment was, what my alternative was, but I don't know that. And the Maverick emerged. I study a lot of archetypes, always have, because I love using different parts of ourselves to access pieces that we can't get the natural way or with our own old stories. So I knew that I had accessed this during my divorce. I kind of embodied the wild woman, had a playlist, wore a bracelet when I had to go to court, but it was almost like sparks that kind of petered out. I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So I did some research, and I realized, I'm like, oh, okay, this is why this Maverick thing keeps popping up for me. And I created a whole brand around it. And I came out with a new website, copy that sounds exactly like if you were my best friend and I was whispering to you in the back of the classroom. And, I'm a champion of people finding their own way. I personally don't care what it looks like. As long as it's yours, I will help you find it. And it just kind of catapulted me up and out of still behaving, still watching what everyone thought, still sneaking to do a little bit and then coming back to make it home on time to do all the things I was supposed to do. Juggling the exploring your own life and raising two kids still in a Jewish environment was a very interesting thing. And there were points where I felt like I had a split personality. And in a way I did, because it was the safest way for me to find myself, get the grounding that I needed to then carry the rest of me over to that new life. That took a lot of years, even while helping other people. It's been, I could say I'm 9.5 years in. I don't know that both my feet are fully grounded in either place, but I kind of like floating between and enjoying, the beauty in both sides of my world.
What a journey. And the thing that, as you were saying that, one of my favorite words is authenticity, or my favorite values. And it sounds like you had that internal nudge to be like, is this authentic? Because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, or what I think I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm checking the boxes, but something feels off.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm not certain it's always easy to understand, wait, but I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. What's wrong?
Yeah. And the problem is, I think, unfortunately, in the industries we're in the therapeutic and coaching world, your version of authenticity and my version of authenticity are very different, but we kind of wear each other's because it's how growth happens. I'm inspired by someone's leading me. I start dressing like them. I start speaking like them. I've got my green juices. I've got my yoga, and I'm still not changed from the inside, but this is what it was supposed to look like. And I these are such deep values to me that I can't fake things. I have no poker face. Like I can't fake a hello, let alone a whole relationship. So it just was irking me that I'm playing this role that I didn't feel was real. And I honestly feel the people I was trying to help didn't feel it was real because I sounded like everybody else. Now, they are beautiful tenets if you live by them. And if you don't, it's quite obvious and sad in an industry that's meant to help people, which is probably a whole nother podcast episode. How much ego gets thrown in with the vanity metrics and the speed of growth and who's the most popular crowd. Like, I didn't do that at 16. I'm not doing it at 49. You got to be kidding me.
Amen.
And I had
that.
to fight against myself because it's easier that way. And it's a faster route. I couldn't. That's where the Maverick in me just fights. So she won't let me.
I love that about her. And what was it that just helped you decide in coaching that that was going to be the thing? Did you know that that's where you would end up? Or was it just that natural progression of, wait, this was so beneficial for me? Did you know that that would, as you were going through that, and to even get to a performance mentor, like, what does that mean as a coach? Because I've never heard that phrase before. I'm like, oh, what does that mean? How did you get to that?
So the title came from, I hate the words life coach because bless them, they're 24-year-old life coaches who haven't had any life yet. So it just, I feel limited by the definition.
Yes.
And I it doesn't feel like mindset to me because for me, I'm all about, I'm trademarking woo and do. It's like the energetics and also actually action taking.
This is why we're besties.
Exactly. Exactly.
Both need a place. You can't
have absolutely. And I know for me, listen, as I shared with you before we recorded, talk therapy for me at that time was never a great thing because I'm a talker, I'm a creative, I'm imaginative. So I can get myself in and out of trouble in 2 seconds if I want to. Like I'll never get caught on anything. and so I used that for a long time to hide. So I know the power of mindset work. I also know that it's not only in our minds, it's somatic, it's in our bodies. Our trauma is held in other places than being very clever. I'm clever and it gets me more caught in my trauma than releasing me. So when we are the storytellers of the world, we have to be very careful what stories we tell. And I was telling stories about what it was going to look like and it didn't work. So I had to face myself. So I think honestly, performance for me it's a more honest word for how we show up in the world. Like I have days I perform like I'm on stage. I have days where I perform better for myself in optimizing my mindset. But to me, the nuance of the performance piece, whether it's external or internal, is the dance where the real change happens. Is like, who is this for? Does it work for you? Does it apply in all scenarios? Are you just playing a role or are you finding an internal place for yourself? Now, for other people, they will use it as performance. Go, go, go. She'll help me get out of my way. And if that's where they need to start, and that's the call, my bat signal that makes them choose me, then great. I'll still take them on the journey they need. It's just a different doorway they come in. People are afraid of the deep work. And I'm happy to show them there's a different playful way to do it.
I love that so much. I love like everything you said. I'm like, oh wait, let's go back and talk about that. No, let's go talk about this. But to really stick with where we are, I do want to rewind for just a quick second on that we are the storytellers and we're not always telling the right story.
I am my biggest champion and my worst enemy, and I'm proud of both because it's because I'm this creative. It's because I never see something straightforward, because I see everything in between the lines. And that has been my hardest point on healing because I'm a unique snowflake and you can't get in there. And I break functional medicine doctors who work on my immune adrenal stuff. And I break intuitive healers who I don't let in. Like, it has been my force. I remember post my divorce when it was a very dark time, I went to a psychiatrist and he prescribed medication for a short period of time. And I couldn't spell my own name at the time. And I'm still happy I went because I had 2 young boys and I needed help at the time. And I remember, and those of you who are in America who understand how much we pay for these things, this is a big deal. I went to him and he was exactly what you would think of, like old, crusty, musty, smelly books piled high, messy office, glasses crooked. He's in a weird cardigan. He was a creepy dude. And he said to me, I said, but I don't feel like myself and that scares me and I don't want to feel like that. And he said, but you're scrappy. You'll always be fine. I said, I'm sitting here on the verge of being suicidal, and you're telling me because I'm scrappy, I'll be okay. And I got down on my knees in the room and I said, I know I'll be okay. That's the problem. But at what cost? At what point am I going to break because I'm always okay? And he refunded me all of my money from all of my sessions because, and I mean, this was a long time ago. I hardly remember yesterday, but this I remember very clearly, because that scrappiness, that ability to always survive was the worst thing in the world for me. Softening, which I still struggle with, softening and allowing and facing and letting go, even though I know something's true, is because I'm this storyteller. Having to learn new stories and infuse them in is the hardest part for me. I don't need all the rest of the stuff. I am the best help and the worst help to myself.
Yeah, I always
because
ask
of these
clients,
abilities. Yeah.
you know, what's the story you're telling yourself?
Yeah.
And how is it serving you?
Yeah.
And oftentimes they'll be like, especially when we're stuck, it's like, oh, it's not serving me at all. Okay, yes. And there's a secondary benefit you're gaining by holding on to this narrative. And until we're able to let go of that story, then we have no chance of being able to step into a new version of ourselves. And as you know, letting go of that story, that narrative, retelling it comes at a big cost at times of a relationships and identities and connections. And yet, to me, that's one of the only paths to true healing or freedom or authenticity or being your old wild woman self in a most authentic way.
Yeah. And you know, what I found in healing some of this stuff, which is an active, continuing journey, I will not pretend it is not. Our stories don't stay our stories. Our stories add on with more color. It's Technicolor now. There's music and they're backup dancers. Like Beyonce can't just walk off the stage because she created a whole scene. That's what happens to our stories. They are now decorated and tethered to lots more around. Oh, silly me. I should just stop thinking that. That's why I struggle with the regular mindset stuff or the simple affirmation work. I know that it's beautiful. I know it's impactful, but when you have a very colorful, creative brain, all those things do for someone like me is make me rage internally more, because I'll be scoffing at the idea it's an abundant world. Screw that, it's not an abundant world. You know, there's a whole new narrative that comes out. So it's like, where's the neutrality in which we turn off some of the strobe lights and turn off some of the pyrotechnics that are adding to our wonderful story that serves us and protects us even when it doesn't? How do we neutralize to get to a point of there's this little inner child who's standing with a microphone, repeating the same thing and decorating with monsters that may not really be there anymore, and then say, are we finished and can we safely walk somewhere else? And there's no scarier walk off stage than that.
Yeah. Oh, that's so powerful. When people come to work with you, what do you see as the biggest transformations in helping them find their own path? Because I love that you're out of the box with it. And not to knock life coaching, but I do feel that it's a very packaged program that doesn't allow for people to really say, great, you're right. You know, I mean, and everything that I teach, I also like question it. I think that's part of, you know, how I was raised as well. Like this, just because it works for me doesn't mean it's going to work with you, but I do know that something will work.
Yes.
That growth and change is possible as a fundamental belief system. And so when you work with your clients, how do you help them find what that magic is as that performance mentor, which I still love the whole idea of performance being how we show up each day, and it's going to be different and it can still be authentic. Even when it is different. Yeah.
And then to me, it's that active motion. We're always in performance mode of some sort, sometimes to our benefit, sometimes to our detriment. So learning how to, I see it as a switchboard. So it's a performance switchboard, like that movie Inside Out, which I love. Like, how are you moving your own switchboard? Because you are in control of your destiny. You're in control of your success, your happiness. You're also in control of your misery. I turn that one up on myself all the time, accidentally, like, ooh, press that button again out of habit. So how do I help find my clients' magic? This is
as a quick aside, that was one of we were talking before we hit record about my relationship with John. That was one of the things that really attracted me to him, was because he consulted on Inside Out for the character of anger, because he's done anger management work and was an expert in emotions. I'm like,
oh my God. Okay. I now love John. John, if you're listening to this, I love you. Anger was my favorite guy, because I'm like, I understand him. I can relate to him.
John consulted on anger. So I just had
how funny. I didn't even know that.
Yes. Okay, so now we go back to what you were saying.
So how do I do this? I mean, I'm not embarrassed to say this, but it sounds like a fluffy answer. It's intuitive for me. I can just sense.
I get that.
Clients will say to me, and I work with very high level professionals who would never go near someone like me until they have to be honest with you. Like I have a client who I was in the room. I work a lot in England, and I was in the room with him last week, and I spoke at his event, and he introduced me. How most people say this to me, and I was talking to my partner about this. Like, I forget that everyone says this, and I really have to start owning it. So this is a perfect time to own this. It's like she sees things in my mind before I do, and I just do. So because I'm a storyteller and because I'm an intuitive, I can understand, I can link where the story is to where the issue lies. And because the stories for me are just words connected to something, I don't need to hear the story. I can just almost find the vein line and go to the source of the pain point or the growth point or the readiness or the thing that needs to be cracked open. And for some clients, I'll slow them down. Some clients, I'll speed them up. Some clients who want to focus only on work, we will focus only on work. And I know everything else is transforming for them. So I really meet people where they are, at where they are ready to move, because until we have some momentum, we can't go to scary places. I won't go to scary places without it. I have a lot of trauma that I deal with and, work on consistently. So I would never take someone at a speed that I couldn't go, even though it's their journey. Just out of respect, I can intuitively know if they can go faster. I'm very playful. I make a lot of jokes. I swear a lot. I make people feel very safe. I was actually speaking to a client this morning. We were talking about, so for those of you who do not know, when in a Jewish family, the Jewish tradition is when someone dies, there's a 7 days of Shiva. And I was saying I should be a professional Shiva person, because you walk into the room, the family's mourning, everyone's uncomfortable. I shine in those rooms because I love making people feel better and more comfortable. So like my line to someone is, oh, I'm nervous. Can you go with me? I'm like, guess what? Guess who's the most uncomfortable in the room? The person in the low chair, because we sit on low chairs. So for me, I'm like, oh, game on, roll my sleeves up. I've got everyone's raw emotions. No one can tuck them back in. I'm like, oh, this is my stage. I cannot wait. So I love the rawness. I love when I confuse clients to the point where they'll call it a Shari concussion, where like I'll just twist them around lovingly, creatively, to the point where the bullshit kind of falls to the wayside. And then, when that centrifuge of protection slows down, then we have the real stuff to work on. And then we can play with possibility and creativity and what else is possible and who do you want to be. So like I work with a lot of CEOs. My line is always, I don't care about the business structures. What CEO do you want to be? And then we'll build everything else around it. No matter what industry, I don't need to know what it is.
It doesn't matter.
Peoples and souls. And it just, I do it unapologetically. And I think my trust in the process helps other people trust the process, even though it kind of sometimes looks like a Willy Wonka ride at times, to be honest.
But doesn't that make it so much more fun, Shari?
I mean, for me, it probably terrifies everyone else, but.
Well, the people of Willy Wonka, they were terrified.
Exactly.
And yet that intuitive piece, you said it was kind of fluffy. I think that's a huge component that many people dismiss, deny, or ignore in themselves.
Yes, absolutely. And I think because in the way I work, it's not on the tin that it says I'm an intuitive. It's more like a client like that in front of professionals, like, I don't know how she does it. And my answer is, I don't need them to know how, because that would be ego for me. Like, I'm an intuitive. It doesn't matter whether they come to me for my creativity, whether they come to me from my results, whether they come to me because I say things they wouldn't. I'm a vessel for them. So that's their choice to choose which door to come in, A, B, or C, and I'm behind all of them. It's just, how do they need me to meet them is my gift to be able to morph into what they need at the time. And I would never want to change that because of a label I want to put on to be proud of where I came from. That's my growth. And I struggled with that for a long time because you do feel like a little 5-year-old who wants to run and be like, look what I found. I found myself. Did you see what I made at school today? I'm like, wait. Their part of the journey is about them. They chose me to be their facilitator. So all of my tools that I found are there for their service, but it's not for my pride. And that's, an interesting dance sometimes.
I've been working with an intuitive healer in a variety of different capacities. And one of the things that we were talking about was being in a healing profession, how easy it can be for ego to get involved.
Oh, yeah.
And when you are really authentically in service to others and you are in tune with yourself, you recognize that it's spirit coming through you that's doing the work.
Absolutely.
Right. And
Absolutely.
I think that's where we can see the difference in some of those maybe more authentic coaches
Correct.
versus the ones that are kind of the cookie cutter, because that's the ego involved saying, look at my shiny package. I'm
Yes.
so good at what I do. But there's that disconnect of that authenticity or that reality based vulnerable human soul to soul connection, that's
Yeah.
what really creates transformation. Which what you're saying ultimately is we all want to create transformation. We get in our own way, and you're here to clear out the debris and all the bullshit and all the cobwebs and saying, look what's here, look at this beautiful shiny sparkling diamond underneath this rubble. We just got to clear it all out so it can go shine in the world.
Yeah, and it's really interesting is before this incarnation of me, when I was a young married mom and early in my divorce years, I did mixed media art. So I would do custom pieces for people's bedrooms and homes. And I did a lot of mosaic furniture, like the old funky, like Mackenzie Child's crazy looking Alice in Wonderland, of course, because that's what my brain is like. You can't see my background, but you would believe me
Yeah.
if you did. And mosaics for me was always seeing broken pieces of things come together in something beautiful. Didn't have to be perfect. I was queen of picking up furniture off the side of the road from flea markets. Like, I see beauty in things that other people throw away. And I take those same qualities into my therapeutic work because I just see potential. Everything else is Michelangelo and clay. And and I know you're a trained therapist, and I've worked with a lot of therapists as their coach. And one of the things I find therapists struggle with a lot is that interface thing, is like, how much of myself do I share? And you're not trained to do that. And for me, in my way of coaching, I share all of me. So I am very vulnerable. Every one of my sessions is a session for myself too. I will actively say in a session, oh, I needed to hear that out of my own mouth to myself. Like, I am messy and vulnerable, and I am not for everyone. But in that sharing, my clients don't feel like they have to clean before a cleaner comes. They're not tucking stuff in first. It's like, let's take out all the puzzle pieces. Let's rejig it into a new, beautiful mosaic. And we're both going to learn a lot about each other along the way. And it's for my clients who enjoy that, it's a safety piece of no one's ever had their back like that before.
Yeah.
And I remember this all started, it's such a movie moment. And it sounds like it's not real, but I swear it happened. There was a time, after my divorce, in that dark period, I remember dropping the kids off at school. Don't remember driving home. I was so out of it. I crawled to the floor. I had a low platform bed from IKEA, proudly built it myself. And I couldn't even make it up onto my mattress. And the room was dark, and I was laying there in so much pain. And I said, God, universe, whoever the hell is up there, if you help me get up from here, I swear I'll never let anyone feel this alone or this lost or this misunderstood in my life. And I promise you, 2 weeks later, it all started changing.
Wow.
And I will never forget
I just got
that
chills.
moment. Yeah.
Wow.
Still crying this many years later. I had a client last week who messaged me. I held a workshop in England, and she messaged me afterwards, and beautifully, she's an older woman. And she said, I had a mentor for 20 years and she passed away. And for the past 3 years, I've been floating, not knowing where if I could ever find that again. And I found that in you, and you make me feel not lost. And I lost it because it was the exact words. Like, it just came full circle. It was like a sign, like, okay, you did what you asked for. And it's, it's a very sacred and honored and heavy thing to carry, and the most beautiful gift to be able to do for people. I struggle with self-care. I struggle with boundaries. I struggle because now that I'm doing what I love to do, I just want to do it all the time. And I forget I have a body attached to this soul that wants to share everything. And I have my own stuff to heal, and I get triggered by things. So, I really think for the listeners to realize that, you come on and listen to podcasts like this of inspirational people and like-minded people who adore these conversations. And we were saying earlier, we don't do small talk. We live in this stuff all the time. It doesn't mean we're not real or that we don't struggle. Same things that you do. We don't have any magical powers. Well, actually, we all have magical powers. We have to learn how to use them. And it isn't get to a phase and then it's all better. If anything, I've had to dive so much deeper the more I know. I was like, oh, is there a time where this ends, or it's just gonna keep going deeper and deeper?
Yeah, I think those seekers like you and I, it just keeps going deeper. It wouldn't be aligned to just all of a sudden stop.
No. And
Well,
I will
because
never
life
go
is
somewhere a client, I can't take them if I've not gone there. I'm sure the same with you, and
very
which
much.
requires this coal miner light on our heads and just keep going. So we've got deeper places to go and share and show.
And, you know, I love what you said, because I'm very much the same way. I recently did an Instagram post about this, of how I'm not a typical therapist, because I knew I could never fit into that model.
Yeah.
I knew I had to find my own path, and that I knew that would make me better at what I do. And as a result, the relationships I have with my clients are just that. They're relationships. They are real. We say, I love you. We hug. I just last night hosted a women's dinner, that I'm starting to do these once a month women's dinners, and a handful of old clients were there that I haven't seen in years. Mm-hmm. And I just was so overjoyed, because these connections are, I hold them so dear. People entrust their confidentiality within me. They trust their pain within me. I don't take any of that lightly. To be a part of someone's journey is an absolute gift.
It really is.
It's an absolute gift, because it's hard enough to struggle in our own lives. So when we allow someone to hold that space for us, you know, I don't think people realize, if you have a therapist or a coach, just know they love you deeply, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think about my clients all the time. I hold myself back from reaching out at times, because I don't want to be crossing their boundary. But this role of being a guide, a mentor, a coach, a therapist, a light in someone's life, like, just know, if you're someone who has someone like that, they love you just as much as you love them.
Yeah. And sometimes deeper, because we allow ourselves to, you know, the relationship, because people come to us in pain. I always say our ideal clients are not our ideal clients when we get them. We come with the barriers, with the other therapists or practitioners that didn't help them, that made them feel more broken. Can I trust this person with this? Or where we come with an open, ready heart to hold your pain and your transformation. So the vessel is so big and requires a lot more protection because of that. Like, I mourn when clients leave. I miss them. It hurts my heart. I hate goodbyes. You know, a lot of my clients stay with me for a long time. A lot of them don't, and they move on. And I struggle with that. Like, my heart hurts. Like, we shared everything together. That's hard. It's, you know, a real interesting relationship cycle that goes on with people's, you know, that the love still stays even if you don't speak all the time. It's really interesting. Really.
Connection supersedes time and space, I've often said.
Yes, absolutely.
So for those listeners, as we wrap up, if someone who maybe doesn't have the means to work with someone like you or I, but who feels that sense of, I know that inner Maverick is in me, I know that I'm not living the life that feels authentic, I'm that forever people pleaser, putting other expectations above my own, what are some of the, I say simple, but I know they're not simple, but what are some of the perhaps beginning steps for someone who feels like, oh, that was me on my bedroom floor, and I don't even know the first move to make, just because you've had such an incredible journey? How would you guide someone in just some of that beginning pieces where they know intuitively it's going to get better, that they're going to be okay, but they also don't know that they're going to get better and that it's going to be okay? They want to find that path. What would you say to someone who's just beginning?
So I think that the greatest first coach you can have is a beautiful or ugly new notebook or journal that you can find with some truth telling. So a process that I take clients that I've done en masse, or you can even go to my website, you'll find I have a course on there. It's a 7-day easy thing to do. It's called Unpack. So my process with people is, I believe we need space for anything to change. We even need space for things to get better. So if we get, as I was, caught in my own corner, that I had no space to breathe, and then I was expecting something to change, we need some bandwidth and perspective in order to see what we want and what we don't want. So I'd say number one is to open that journal and start to unpack. What are your strengths? What are the weaknesses? What are the stories and lessons? What do you want more of? What do you want less of? And just really allow yourself to play in taking apart the puzzle pieces and actually seeing what's in that little rolly bag we take everywhere. Because if we don't know, then we can't do anything differently. So unpack is number one. Number two of the process is to unbelieve. And that's literally, you can go down with like different colored markers. What's mine? What's not true anymore? Whose is this? Who needs to return? The example I always use is, let's say you go away for a weekend with a bunch of girlfriends. And that last night, maybe everyone had a little bit too much to drink. You ran to catch your flight in the morning. You get home, you open up your bag, and there's a red shoe that doesn't belong to you. You go into the WhatsApp group and you say, hey guys, love you all. My head hurts from the wine last night, and I have a red shoe that doesn't belong to me. When it's a physical thing that doesn't belong to us, we're very easy to say, this is not mine. Who does it belong to? With our emotions, our memories, our habits, our patterns, our behaviors, we'll schlep that red shoe around with us everywhere, trying to fit it on my shoe, trying to fit it on my foot, into my closet. This must mean something. It's a sign. Google spiritual meaning of red shoe. Like, we build more stories around red shoe. So it's like, okay, in this unbelief, what in here is not mine? Where did it come from? Even if it's mine, what do I no longer need? And there's space out of all the stuff you unpack. And then the last one is understand. Understand, as you beautifully said earlier, what are the stories and why is it serving me? Like, why do I keep schlepping this red shoe everywhere? What do I want instead? I don't even need this. There doesn't have to be a dramatic release with a big story. Most of the things I'd let go of got to the point where I just got tired of my own BS. And it's like, you know what? I'm done with this on a Tuesday afternoon at 3:05 p.m. And I put it down. We get so scared of putting stuff down because it's going to mean something about how long we held it. And what does it mean if we put it down? What does it mean if I keep it? When we can unpack, unbelieve, and understand, we cut a lot of the ties because it becomes a practical decluttering of our minds. And then suddenly there's more room to decide what we want more of and what we want less of. I could pick up every old story I have, Jory, like in 2 seconds. It is not healed and sealed away. It's an active choice every day. So use that notebook, use this process on repeat. When you feel that tension, what can I unpack? What do I need to unbelieve? And what can I understand differently? And then you can start to coach yourself to a new place.
I love that. It's so simple, not easy, but simple and powerful.
Yeah.
We carry and schlep way too much that was never ours to begin with.
Yeah. And then we build labels and identities around what we're carrying. I'm good at this, so I'm going to continue. I'm great at it, and now I choose not to do it.
Yeah.
Big decision, because who wants to stop doing something they're great at? Like, that is a superpower of mine, to carry everyone else's stuff. I was born for this. I was made for this. And
at what point is it not serving me? Right.
Exactly.
It's not serving me.
And I have no room to go do the things I want to do. I have 7 books in my head. I need space to be able to write them. Thank you for being here. We don't have to be angry it was there. Thank you for serving me. Thank you for keeping me safe. Thank you for helping me do the best that I could at that time. And we are now done. And this can be ceremonial for you. This can be funny for you. Throw a coconut, like Tosha Silver says in her book. Burn a piece of paper, do a dance.
I love the burning ritual. I'm a big.
I burn stuff all the time. I did it with my son. He's like, "What are we doing?" I'm like, "Don't ask questions. Just rip up the papers that you wrote down for yourself." And it was so freeing. And I do it on repeat. My fireplace gets a lot of airtime in my house.
Yes, I'm a huge fan of that kind of ritual because it closes the container.
Yeah.
And now we have a moment. We say, "Oh, that was the moment that I decided. I made that conscious choice to let that go."
Because we will go repack that bag. Like, don't think you won't just go, "Oh, I looked at it." And then you carefully fold everything back in the wheelie bag and take it with you. Mm-hmm. It takes a few passes. It's not a one and done thing.
No, I came across this post in the midst of my breakup from John, that we had that horrible short period of time, but I was really searching for like all of the messages, all of the things. And there was one particular thing that I had found where it was talking about, whatever you're carrying was never yours to begin with, and you can return to sender. And that became a phrase that I took into other aspects, and I've started working with that with clients. Is like, is this yours? No. Okay. Return to sender. And yet when we have close family ties, especially because this is hardest in our family, it can often be really hard to know, wait, shit, what's mine and what's not mine.
Exactly. How would I even know? I've had it my whole life.
And I recently, in an experience, unpacked something in which I gained great clarity around what was mine and what wasn't.
Hmm.
And, oh, okay, now I have a choice knowing that.
Yeah.
And it's okay if others don't agree. And I think that's the courage. That's the Maverick part of, okay, well, I know this to be my truth, but what do I do for everyone else that I just drew the boundary around, who now is shaming, blaming, judging, criticizing me because I've now broken the rules of the game that we weren't supposed to mention we were playing.
Exactly. Or like I moved something on a chessboard and everyone is now looking and being like, uh-oh, what does this mean about me? And I mean this lovingly to the people in your life who want you to go back to that chess piece. That is their journey to figure out. And you can do it with kindness and gracefully and with love. And this is a hard one because I struggled with this. As soon as I started seeing things, I couldn't wait to go tell everyone, all of that. This is not mine. This belongs to you. Note to self, that doesn't always help. And
that's where
it isn't about correcting.
That's where discernment comes in.
Absolutely. And that's where having spaces like this and communities like ours, and even in an Instagram feed, like if you're struggling with this, like come to me on Instagram and message me. I heard you on Jory's podcast and I just got to get this off my chest. I have boundaries, but it would be my pleasure to hold and witness that release, because a lot of times we go to the place of pain to try to find forgiveness or an apology we won't get. That is not what this work is about. This is releasing your responsibility, holding. And I had to do a lot of that work because there are apologies I'll never get. And that is not what I'm sitting and waiting for, because frankly, they wouldn't feel good even if I got them at this point. I don't need them.
And the part of, I think, for people getting stuck is the story believing, why aren't I worthy enough to get that apology?
Yes.
And it's not about you.
No.
Yeah. This is the true path of healing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is, everything you just said, this is the true path of healing that is lifelong. It's kind of like, when am I done learning my lessons? And I don't think
Are we there yet?
Are we there?
Exactly.
Are we there? My coach that I work with earlier in the year, she said to me, because I would always look at things and be like, okay, what's the lesson I'm here to learn? Because I'm always like the spiritual approach. Okay, what's the meaning of this? Why is this happening? Why this? Why now? Not from I can't accept it, but more, what am I here to learn? Curiosity sort of place. And she goes, Jory, if every time you ask, what am I here to learn? The universe is hearing, give Jory more lessons. She's like, stop asking for the lessons. You know what you need to know. She goes, it's time to graduate. And now let's apply what you know. Like, okay, great.
You yell, got it.
We're good. Okay. Now we're just going to be in application mode, and I don't need to be gathering more information.
No more receiving at the moment. Door closed. Yes.
Or door closed. Exactly. Because I think for a seeker, like, oh, there's more I'm supposed to okay, maybe the learning is in the doing and not in the learning more.
Absolutely. And also for people like us who learn for ourselves to then bring to our clients, sometimes the flow is a little bit too intense. It's called the 5 flows of information or lessons. Like, I don't need to learn everyone's lessons at me all the time just because I can. And even knowing you're allowed to slow down the messages is a gift and a boundary.
Yes. What would you say as we wrap up? Because we've mentioned it now a couple of times. As we do this work, as we unpack, unbelieve, and understand, one of the biggest barriers I see to that are enacting boundaries. What are some of the ways that you guide your clients, and for our listeners, as some tips of effective, doesn't mean easy, but effective boundary setting?
So I struggle with boundaries. So I can honestly tell you that the way I've done it is probably a wimpier way than the coach I am would tell you, but I'm going to be honest and open here, as I always am.
Thank you.
Start with the lowest hanging fruit. Like I start with customer service representatives on a phone where I struggle. I hate confrontation. So I will carry everything. I have a very messed up gut because of it. So I will speak my truth to someone whose face I'm never going to see, who's getting paid to have to get a little bit of my rage. I practice in places where it matters less. I know that many of us, when we find a boundary, want to run to the person it's hardest to put in place, but we don't prepare ourselves for the backlash of that. Or like you said, the shame blame game. So I play with strengthening the muscle, just like you would if you run a marathon. You're not going to decide to run a marathon and the first day you run is marathon day. You go for 3 minutes off the sofa. You go for 10 minutes. You go stop at the ice cream store. You go chase a dog who ran away. So where can you play with the lines of your discomfort, even with a friend, to say, can I say something to you that I need to say to someone else, but I need to learn how to have it come out of my mouth? And I've had to practice just saying the words. My partner's very good with these kind of things. Like, what would I say if I wanted to say it? He'll have me write down in my notes in my phone before a meeting or before a conversation with someone I need to have. What are the bullet points? So I'll rage out loud at him. He'll then feed back, he heard these 3 things. I'm like, oh, okay. So I just, quote unquote, need to say that. And I have a lot of trauma around confrontation. So for me, it goes to immediate terror and hide in my shell. It's like, wait, I can say that without getting in trouble. I can say that without getting hurt. How would I need to? So I'll say it in full blast, and then I'll reverse engineer what is the kind and more graceful way to do it. And then when I'm up to the performance, it doesn't feel as scary to me because I've practiced a few times.
I love that. And it is building a muscle.
Yeah.
It is building a muscle. And I love what you said. I'll say it to my partner so I can practice and then maybe see where I need the refining, because I think to bring it kind of full circle, part of that boundary is we overshare the story that is preventing the thing. And I know I talk too much. And I sometimes give context that isn't helpful, but I think I need to buffer for the ask that I'm trying to draw the boundary around, when really then people just hear the fluff. Correct. In which then they get caught up in those details and they may miss what my actual request is.
Yeah. And then they don't honor it. And then we think boundaries don't work or no one listens to us. But like, we sent them on a scavenger hunt to actually hear something of value, because we're protecting ourselves from being embarrassed about being bold and just saying it and then being quiet, which I don't know how to do, especially in awkward situations.
Yeah. I also will tell people boundaries aren't just telling someone what you don't want. It's saying, I'm not available for this, but I am available for this. And that can also be a flip side that people need to do some self-awareness around of, I know what I don't want, but wait, what do I allow, or what is okay? But that can also buffer some of the discomfort of saying, here's the line, please don't cross it, but here's where you can step over.
Yeah. And then you don't feel like it's this open-ended, uncomfortable place. And if anyone's raised children, I mean, I have 2 wonderful kids, very different personalities. Had to parent them differently in terms of discipline. Not that I'm such a disciplinarian. They'd even laugh that I said that. I never yelled at them in their lives. But like my little one, you couldn't give him an either or, because it was always no. So it was positive reinforcement, reward for good behavior, not ignore otherwise. Like, I'm not engaging in what I don't want. So that's a beautiful way to start a boundary, is when someone does something that does work, is I really love the way you called before you just showed up at my house. I really love that you asked if you could have some time instead of assuming I'll drop everything. And then it's a little courage to say, oh, I said something out loud and it was a compliment to them. And I showed them my line of demarcation without a big line in the sand, which is scary for me to hold.
Yes. Shari, I could talk to you for hours. Same. I just want to be like sitting side by side with some beautiful view somewhere, and either a big warm cup of coffee or tea, or a lovely bottle of wine and some charcuterie and cheese. I mean, we will make this happen. But in the meantime, there's been so much here, and I really hope the listeners. I know there's so much that we talked about that is ubiquitous, and especially women. Like I mentioned, I had this women's dinner last night, and there was 12 of us at the table, and everyone shared a little bit of their story and what they were. I set the intention for share what you could need some support in right now, so we can. And these are all strangers, but that vulnerability to realize, oh wait, what everyone said is what I'm also feeling. Right? There's so much that we as women, whether it's being people pleasers or putting everyone else in front of ourselves, or afraid to disappoint someone, or the natural caretakers that we are, but then not being able to caretake ourselves, or the courage to like truly embody change and become the best version of ourselves, even when we have no fucking idea what that might look like.
Exactly.
There's so much in everything that we just said that even though we packed it in this nice little, fun, loving conversation, we both know it's fucking hard work.
Oh yeah, it's messy.
Doesn't happen overnight.
There's mascara down the face, for us included. Imagine we're the ones who teach it. So, yeah.
Oh yeah. So sure, people who want to know more, work with you, follow you, where can they best find you?
Easiest place to find me and please come say hello is Instagram, Shari Teigman. My website, shariTeigman.com. I'm always everywhere. And I'm on Facebook as well, Shari Teigman. Like, come and play. You'll hear all of the follies and foibles of my life all over the place. I share as I teach, so you will learn even if you can find what you need even if we never ever get to speak, which I hope that we do.
Yes. Well, I am so happy we finally spoke in actual person. Like I said, I absolutely adore you. We were meant to talk today of all the times we've been trying to connect, and I just really thank you for your time and your courage for sharing your story and your beautiful, bright light that you share in the world. It really comes through. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
To continue your journey forward, find Jory Rose on Facebook and Instagram to become part of her growing community. You can also gain access to her meditations, books, online classes, or to sign up for an upcoming retreat, visit her at joryrose.com. That's JOREEROSE.com.